Okay, let's talk about how I came up with the arrangement. First, I started off with a very vague idea of just an up and down gesture, and I wanted the short, short, long. So something like this. That's the general direction I wanted things to go. And from that, of course, I played around. I first started with just single notes, and then I added a third. Then that got turned into something like this. I really like the energy of the broken octaves there, but I thought it was a little too much, so I settled on the final version, which sounds like this. The part that I ended up focusing a lot on was that semitone relationship between the first two notes, and I chained them together in different ways throughout the rest of the exposition as well as the development. So just that motive there, that semitone relationship became a very important thing. I chose the key of D minor because I felt that it suited the brooding, dark nature of the melody, especially the first theme, quite well. We'll get to the second theme in just a bit. And if you look at the exposition, it's in D minor. Of course, I'm visiting other key centers as well because Beethoven does that. And something that he does a lot is use diminished chords and secondary dominant chords all over the place. For me, what was the most effective was not to think of the order of chords or a progression of harmony, but rather focus on a center. So in this case, D minor or say G minor, and I'll find ways to emphasize that sound by adding some other chords around it that create tension. And diminished chords, of course, come in handy, secondary dominants, and it all just reinforces the key center, but also adds a lot of other material, a lot of drama, a lot of tension. Now, since theme 1 is in D minor, the logical key for theme 2 would either be F major or A major. I would say F major is more common, the relative major key. So I also kept in mind contrast. I wanted the second theme to be of a different character, something brighter and something more optimistic. Now this next phrase here, which is just a string of resolving chords, is just a means to emphasize the key of F major. The string of chords is going down the circle of fifths, so we're resolving from 5 to 1, descending. So instead of going there, I choose to find a place where I can insert a C7 or a C dominant 7th chord, which is the 5 of F major, so that I can stay in F major without going to a completely different key. And this is something that a lot of composers do quite often, in that they'll start a harmonic sequence, whether it's the circle of fifths or something else, and depending on their target key, they'll find a way to, alter a bit of that sequence so that they find the right resolving chord for the right key. Some things that were difficult in terms of coming up with the end of the exposition was to maintain enough momentum to end the whole section, but also leave room so that we're ready for the development. And that was quite tricky because I was building up a lot of energy, a lot of tension, but every way that I was trying to end it seemed like such a hard stop or too much of a run-on sentence. So I really didn't like the momentum of all of those options. They were quite problematic in terms of not quite reaching a climactic point to end the whole section, but also something was lacking. And the best way that I could work around it was to just play the entire exposition and try out each ending. And finally, I came up with this version. For me, writing the development came a lot easier than the other sections. I think it's because I felt a sense of freedom in terms of taking whatever bits of both themes and going in whatever direction I wanted, as long as I returned back to the original key of D minor. First, I start off with fragments of theme 1. And I'm basically riffing off of that original idea that I focused on, that semitone relationship. I really wasn't shy in terms of including a lot of passages where I'm just simply going down a series of arpeggios or going up a run of octaves. And I really tried to emulate how Beethoven does that. There's always a balance. Of course, you don't want to stick with one type of technique or one type of pattern for too long, but it's okay if you go across the whole keyboard with just octaves or arpeggios. I relied mostly on series of sequences and also repetitive sections where I would just go back and forth between two chords. Now, another tricky part was to find a way to settle all of this tension and energy into a place where the first theme can be reintroduced and without feeling like it's coming out of the blue, but also not feeling like it is very obviously about to happen. So something in between, and this is what I settled on. By going up in register, I had room to repeat these little figures so that it can naturally lead to the beginning. So register was a huge part of the solution. So as you can hear, compared to the theme in the exposition, now in the recap or the recapitulation, the ending of theme 1 has slightly been altered. So for this video, I didn't want my piece to be too long, so I chose to keep the recap really short. And at this point, I chose to focus again on these two pitches, A and B flat. I repeat it so that it's very tense, and after all of this commotion, just reducing down to two single pitches gets quite intense, if you know what I mean. So that provides this sort of climactic moment. And then, of course, theme 2, I repeat this in D minor. And to conclude, I wanted something where the intensity was back and it just kind of rolls off a cliff. So this is what I came up with. One of the dilemmas for the very end was, should I play that low D once or twice? And I settled on once. I'll play it once for you where I'm playing the D twice. It just doesn't seem as intense because something about it is too final. I just want it to be rushed and like a hard stop. I don't know. What do you think?